My name is Vickie Musni. I'm a certified personality trainer who lives in Reno, Nevada. I am the author of, or co-author of 4 books, including 3 about personalities: Personalities for Business, Personalities for Educators, and Color Me Smart.
And
The best
Vicky,
advice
yeah, hit me. What's your best advice?
I've ever been given was to be true to yourself by trying to become the best version of who you are, rather than thinking that you needed to change your personality or become someone else. Just be the best version of who you can be.
Ooh, I like that. So when did you learn that? Who told you that?
That was part of my very first personality training that I took about 12 years ago now. It was actually a public speaking training offered through an organization called Class. And honestly, because I hadn't done a ton of research, I just knew I wanted to do more professional public speaking. And it was close enough to where I lived. I could drive to it. I had an affordable place to stay. The timing worked for me. I went, and when I got there, I was like, oh yeah, these are the same people that do that personality thing. So the whole week of public speaking training was steeped in personalities. So it was delivered in the context of being the best speaker you can be, and not trying to emulate someone who you may love and admire, who may be really excellent, but you've got to be you. And I think it just extends to so many other areas of life outside of that original context. That's what I try to remember is I'm never going to change who I am at my core, nor should you try to change who you are. But as we grow, as we learn, as we mature, we can try to become the best version of who we were meant to be.
So you mean I should stop trying to be Mitch Taylor? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, you
Even though it's his birthday?
let him be him and let you be
All
you.
right. Okay. Well, there goes my speech for the weekend. Doggone it. All right. Well, no more Mitch Taylor impersonations for Phil Gerbyshak. Got it. No, but that's great advice, right? I mean, that's so funny. My advice, right? I got Steve Farber years ago. He said 3 words to me that changed my life. He said, be more you. Change my life. So I love that. Be true to yourself. What about if you're a jerk, though? Should you still be you?
You should still try to become the best version of you so you can be true to your personality with a little less jerk factor.
Oh, all right. Well, I've got work to do, so that's good. I wrote that down. Homework for Phil. Be less of a jerk. Okay,
Yeah,
good.
for real.
Good. Yeah. Jeez, I don't know. I'm a work in progress, like all of us. But that's so interesting. So 12 years ago, I'm trying to think back. 12 years ago. Wow, that's a very long time. So what made you curious about personalities? Like, how'd you get started on this personality train, if you will, Vickie?
Well, I'd actually done some personality training with my husband. We actually went through some premarital counseling before we got married. We just celebrated our 25th wedding anniversary a few weeks ago.
Woohoo!
So even though we still are learning things along the way and, you know, have our share of issues for sure, that was steeped in me from early on about always trying to learn, always trying to grow. We did have personality training. And then, like I said, when I took the public speaking training, it was with some of the same people that had developed the Wired That Way assessment, which he and I had taken about another 12 years or so earlier. And it rekindled that interest in me. So I actually went back later and got certified through them. And I've been teaching it for over a decade.
Wow. Wow, that's so cool. You went through it with your husband. So what did you learn about him? What did you learn about you? I mean, this is interesting to me because I just got married a month ago. So I'm curious, right? I want to fix my wife, and I'm hoping that this is going to help me, Vickie. Is that what the course is all about?
Oh, absolutely. You know, it's funny. I actually had somebody sign up for a workshop once, and it was a small group workshop, about 8 or 9 people. So at the beginning, I had all of them tell what their goals were. And he actually said, oh, I'm no longer in the industry anymore. I just signed up for this because I thought you would help me understand women better. And that's really why I'm here. And I went, okay, so this is actually, yes, personalities are great. And there's 2 main ways we can apply them. One is in our personal lives and one is in our professional lives. So what started for me, the not really training, but the exposure that I had to it was definitely more on the personal side, how to understand this person I was about to marry. And then it came up again later when we had kids and understanding our children's personalities. But then when I went to get my certification, that's when I had my aha moment that, oh, I could start applying this to my clients, because my husband and I had a wedding videography business at the time. We've worked in weddings and events the entire 25 years we've been married, even though it has evolved and changed over the years. But I was working with a lot of brides. So when you are in a high stress situation, your personality traits are magnified. So I started to realize, oh, this is not just to help me get along better with my husband and not to understand our 4 kids and how unique their personalities are, but I can start applying this to my clients. And then that's kind of where things started to develop from there, was people in the industry saying, oh, that's fascinating. Can you come to my group of DJs and share with us about how this applies to how we're selling to clients? And then that group said, oh, I'm part of this association. Can you come speak at our regional conference? And so those things just kind of grew together. My love of public speaking and my love of personalities. And for the last 10 years, that's really 99% of what I speak on.
Wow, that's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, I just missed your last program when we were in Hilton Head together.
By a couple hours, I know.
I know, right? Stinky poo, but people raved about it. And I love that they were able to relate that to themselves, to their business, to what they're doing. And you recommended to me, right? Because I missed it. You said, get this book, right? Personality Plus, Florence Littauer here.
That's right.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So let's talk a little bit about this and how this relates. So first, there's 4 different colors, right? There's 4 colors of personality. And you, my dear, you're like me, right? In that fact that you're an orange. Is orange a color, or...
No, I don't call it an orange. I call it a red yellow or a yellow red, depending on which way I'm leaning the most, to acknowledge that those are 2 different color types. So let me back up a little bit, if you don't mind. I do like to give credit where credit is due. I mentioned CLASS, the organization. Florence and her late husband, Fred. Well, Florence actually passed away last year during the pandemic, but I did train under her 12 years ago. And then her daughter, Marita, has done a lot of work on personalities for the last 40 years. And Marita and Florence have written many books together. The main difference between the way they teach things and the way I teach them is that they use the Greek-based words. If you're reading any of their original works, you're going to see words like sanguine, phlegmatic, melancholy, and choleric. I have found that not only is that kind of a mouthful to say, but most people don't really relate to those terms. And even though they meant something in the original Greek, the meaning has gotten lost over the years. And so I have just dropped those terms completely, and I utilize the colors, because I've noticed that most of my audience does know their colors, and it's much easier to describe why I use a certain color. So if I tell you yellow, I want you to think bright, sunshiny, loud. Or if I say blue, deep, like the ocean, or fiery red, or green, like peaceful green meadows, you've instantly got a mnemonic device, and in 10 seconds, an overview for the 4 personality types. You know which one is loud and flashy, which one is the deep thinker, which one is the cool, calm, collected personality, and which one is got that fire, energy, and sometimes temper.
Ooh, that's good. That's good. And I would go with you, right? I like the colors. I'm simple. I like to think about colors more than I do about, words like sanguine and choleric and phlegmatic. So does that mean they're phlegmy? That
was the original theory. So there were some Greek-based philosophers, over 2,000 years ago, that came up with the idea. So one of them discerned the 4 different, most common traits. And then a Greek doctor named Galen came along and added to Hippocrates' theory and said, I think it's because certain people have, different amounts of different bodily fluids. And since then, that has been proven false. But there's a lot of research that supports the 4 temperaments. And the other reason I like colors, Phil, is that we can look at them. Look how many different shades of blue are behind me on my wall. But yet your brain recognizes light blue, dark blue, purpley blue. You can still say, oh yeah, those are all blue. And it's the same way with people. My goal is to not try to get you to put someone in a box and say, oh, all blue personalities behave like this 100% of the time. No, but there's something in common about all of them that our brains can recognize. And if we can identify that, and we can make a small adjustment in the way we communicate, we just might be able to communicate more effectively, solve their issues a little bit sooner, sell something to them that they really need, whatever the context is, understand our spouse or our children better. But it takes us taking that step back and saying, okay, this is what I'm seeing. This is what a personality I think they are. So I'm going to make an educated guess that if I say things this way, it's going to be more meaningful to that person. And it's easier to do that with colors instead of learning some weird, archaic Greek-based terms.
For sure. For sure. Okay. I get that. So we know others, but how do we, what about us, right? What about ourselves? I guess I sort of get, right, that we have to understand ourselves first before we can understand others, which, gets back to your idea of, right, being true to yourself, understanding that. So let's talk about that, right? So first, is that personality, obviously, right, we can read the book. You've got actually a really nice assessment, a simple assessment on your website at VickieMusni.com, which is super helpful for folks. So we get that, right? And we understand, okay, this is how I am. So let's step through. You and I lean more yellow than red, which I love, right? That's why I wore my yellow glasses today. Even though I'm really, to your point, right? I'm orange. I know that. But I'm more yellow than orange. I'm 70% yellow. I'm about 14 or 16% red, and then probably no green and maybe a little bit of blue. Right, because I'm not phlegmy. Is that right? I'm not phlegmy.
Your blue really trait probably learned though. Yeah, you're mostly yellow with red as a strong secondary.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so we know that, right? So let's step through those of us that are yellow, right? Their basic desire is to have fun. We need attention, affection, approval, acceptance, and we control by charm. So you got to step me through this here, Vickie, because it sounds a lot like me, but I don't know that I'm 100% sold. So tell me more. Tell me more and what you've seen, how this makes sense.
First of all, I love that you brought it back to, okay, let's understand ourselves, because you'd be amazed at how many people want to just go to, I want to understand other people. And they forget to step back and say, okay, well, we're obviously seeing everybody through our own lens. And yes, understanding your own personality is really important. And then you mentioned the assessment on my quiz and started naming some percentages. So first of all, I want to say mine is meant to be more introductory because I did train under the Wired That Way personality system. I don't have the legal access to put theirs on mine, but I do highly recommend that assessment as well. It's 40 questions. It's a lot more in depth than what I can give you. But here's the reality, Phil. Yes, if you're talking about personal growth for yourself, you can certainly take the assessment. You can go online, thepersonalities.com, or take the short version at VickieMusni.com and do that and read and learn. But when we do get to that point where we want to understand other people, most situations, unless you're maybe hiring them or something like that, but you can't go up to a stranger or a boss or a client and say, hey, would you take this test so I can understand you better? That's not real world. So my whole perspective and what I like to do with my training is teach you, what can you see? What can you observe? What can you hear? What can you notice? Whether you're meeting in person or you're reading through an email or listening to someone on the phone, what can you tell by their demeanor, their word choice, their pacing to help you say, okay, hey, this is who I think I'm dealing with. And then you can understand how your personality color relates to theirs. But in the midst of that, and what that longer test evaluates is the 20 most common strengths and the 20 most common weaknesses. So that's really when I say you come out with your personality like when you're born. It is developed in the womb. And yes, there are ways that there are factors that influence it and ways that you can grow. But like I said way in the beginning, was you can't really change your personality. You can learn things that do not come naturally to you, but that doesn't necessarily mean you're changing who you are at your core. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Well, I understand. It's part of my personality, Part of what makes me me, yes, is I am born with this need for fun and attention. And that is both a good and a bad thing. I am a fun person to be around. I run a really fun company. My employees love it because I hire a lot of people that are at least half yellow to work in my event entertainment company, and they have fun and we have fun together. But yeah, there's also a downside of having this innate need for attention, for being too self-absorbed sometimes that I forget to listen well, or that I don't do a good job of something as basic as learning someone's name when I first meet a new person and feeling stupid for having to ask them again because I wasn't focused enough. Those are all things that are part of being a yellow. So once I know that about myself, then I can say, okay, these are the things that I really need to work on.
Yeah. Wow.
But it doesn't mean I do it perfectly. You know, I alluded to the fact that my husband and I, we had an issue on Saturday because I blurted something out, because yellows are generally unfiltered. And as a red, one of the traits of a red is that we're very used to being right. So we can be really stubborn and bossy. And that doesn't go over well when you're trying to communicate with your spouse and your children. And I got called out on the way I was speaking. And while it's easy to say, oh, that's because I'm a yellow red, I was born like that, we don't get to hide behind that. And I have to do better. And I've got to find solutions at home and professionally when those things that are part of who I am, the good and the bad, come into play.
So Lady Gaga's right that we're born that way, but that isn't an excuse to be that way. Is that really what you're saying?
Yeah, that's the bottom line.
Yeah. And the more we learn, the better.
I'm not going to change my personality, but if I can learn to think better before I let words come out of my mouth, if I can learn to pause longer before I say something, if I can ask myself, I know you have a quick retort and a witty comment that you want to say, but is that sarcastic thing that's about to come out really going to be the best thing for this situation? If I could just learn to have that self-talk before I open my mouth, that would help a lot in my relationships.
I'm convicted here, Vickie. I struggle from this too. So that's good though. But once we get aware, right, knowing is maybe half the battle, maybe more than half the battle. So that's really, really strong, really, really important. So let's go through one more personality type here so we can be maybe a little more helpful for folks. And, well, selfishly, of course, I'd love to go through red because that's my other one.
We should talk about blues because I have the least experience with that.
I was just going to say. Yeah, let's talk about blue or green, right? Either one. It doesn't matter to me which one. Okay. Let's actually go green because green actually is my second favorite color. But probably one that I have least of here. Although, yeah, blue maybe too, right? So let's talk about the green, the meadows, easygoing, consistent.
Since we got personal and I started sharing personal stuff, I'm married to a green. My husband is at least 70% green and he's about 30% yellow. So at home, I say I'm a very even red-yellow split. At home, I'm a lot more red, because my red side is trying to somehow make up for my husband's greenness. So he's the nice parent. He is the one that's super easygoing. He's been lax about bedtimes and he doesn't nag the kids when they don't do their chores because he just can take it all in stride a lot better than I can. And so it's not helpful for me as a red to come into the room and be like, this kid was supposed to do the dishes. Why is the sink still piled up? And I can't believe no one took out the trash. Like that is, that's how I am wired to respond, but it's not helpful. But it takes a lot more work for me. And I have to stop and ask myself, okay, what would Craig do in this situation? Because he's really good about not blowing up, but those things come so natural to him. And in fact, I've actually used the Incredible Hulk. I used to do a thing when the Avengers first came out. I did a personality assessment of all of the Avengers. And I love using Banner as the example of the green because it is so perfect. He goes to great lengths to keep peace. He's mellow. He's easygoing. And that is so how most green personalities are. But it doesn't mean that they don't have opinions. just because they don't share them, whereas us unfiltered yellows can just share all of our opinions naturally, or the reds too, like we're very outspoken about the way something's supposed to be. But greens have them. They're just willing to roll with somebody with a stronger voice and a stronger opinion for a long time. But eventually, if they feel ignored or not heard or stomped on for long enough, they reach their point, which obviously is why the Hulk is such a great example. And so at home, what that looks like when mom yells, no one's surprised by that. That's just like my mom voice. But if my husband raises his voice, they listen differently, because they know something is really wrong, because it takes so much for this cool, calm, collected green personality to get to that point that somebody really messed up, and they better listen and figure out what they need to do to solve that problem, because that is not his everyday voice.
Wow, that contrast is so important, though. That's interesting, and I think about my sweet wife and I, and she is she's probably even more red than me, which is interesting. I'm yellow. I don't know that we have any. Yeah, maybe the kids are green and blue. Maybe that's what it is, right? I don't know, because typically you need you have to have the whole frog in the blender thing to make this work.
So my dad was a blue, so that's my experience with blue, because I don't have any blue children. Our house is fun, but it's very chaotic, because we're lots of yellows and reds and then some greens that don't mind the messes and the chaos. But the blues, those deep thinkers that have a process for everything, that's kind of where our house lacks.
Wow. Yeah, I need to find a business partner who's more blue than me, because it just that's the opposite. So if you're thinking about this, folks, in 4 quadrants here, upper left for no apparent reason is yellow. Opposite though of that, like lower right, is the blue. Upper right is going to be the red, and lower left is going to be green. So we have some opposites there. And the great news is few people are 100% one color. Everybody's got a little bit there. So Vickie, as we're looking to be more flexible, let's call it, to other people's ways, how do we do that without not being true to ourselves?
Yeah. Well, the good news is most of the time when we're having a conflict, it's either coming with someone who's an opposite personality from us, or it's because we're the same personality. And you've got, for example, reds who have a power struggle because they both want to be right, or yellows that are kind of fighting for the attention. But most of the time it's the opposite. So if it's the same personality, you can at least understand where it's coming from. And if you're the one with the personality knowledge, then you have to have that self-talk of saying, oh, okay, I get it. I can see this. I need to back off and let this person do that. Because again, you can't change the other person. You can only change your own behavior. And if it's the opposite, this is where it's good that we all have blends, right? So let's say my primary personality is a yellow, and I'm having a conflict with a blue, because they want things to be more detailed and more organized and, I don't know, set up in a spreadsheet a certain way more than my personality knows how to do. So what I have to do is either lean green or lean red, and then find some common ground. So for me, my red is my other half. If I lean red, the other need that I have that's really strong for me, besides my yellow need for fun and attention, is I have a need for efficiency. Reds are the get stuff done people. So even though I don't love spreadsheets, and sometimes blues can get bogged down in too many details, if I can say, okay, I've got to lean into my red side, maybe they're doing this because it's more efficient, or this is the way that makes sense to them. And so if I can say, okay, this isn't fun, but I can get behind the efficiency part of it, then I can do it their way. Or if you're a yellow who leans green, and you've got that same example conflict, if you lean green and say, okay, well, greens have that need for comfort. So if I can just remind myself, this is what that blue really needs to be comfortable. They need to have all of the details, all of the boxes checked. And even though my natural self is not this detailed, I understand that I want them to be comfortable. So I'm going to be able to do this their way, because they need to be comfortable too. So it's a matter of finding that common ground and having that right self-talk, and just kind of repositioning the conflict and saying, okay, I don't like conflict. None of our I mean, Reds tend to create a little more of it, but nobody really loves it. And we've all got to work through it. So again, you can't change the other person. You've got to change the conversation in your own head, because that's the only choice you really have.
Awesome. Awesome. So we don't have to change, but we do have to change the conversation. We have to be aware. We have to be understanding. We have to be loving and peaceful about that, even if that isn't our nature. And that's really, really good, right? That does eliminate a lot of the conflict. So I dig that a lot, and I value that a lot, and I value you a lot, Vickie. This is really, really helpful to me as I think about how am I going to deal with these multiple personalities in the world, right? How do I show up? How do I make that happen? I like to pride myself on my flexibility, but this is new stuff for me in many ways that I'm having, getting understanding of, and I really, really appreciate you sharing, Vickie. So what's your last tip here? If folks want to get started on the personality, kind of the, working with others, what's one or two things that they can do right now that they can use to get started?
Find a method of learning that works for your personality. If you're a blue and you like learning in a quiet environment, go buy all of the books. Just type my name into Amazon, or Marita or Florence Littauer into Amazon, and buy the books. If that's how you love to learn, then do that. If that's going to take too long for you and you want to just pick one, all of my books are under 100 pages, because 3 out of the 4 personalities, yellows can't stay focused long enough, reds want just the bottom line, and greens can be a little on the lazier side. So my books are 100 pages or less. Start there. If you are a social person and you want to learn with other people, go find my private Facebook group, the Color Box Community, and ask questions in there and start learning from other people. But find however you like to learn. If you want the full-blown, longer course, ask me about that. If you've just got one burning question, find me. I'll figure out a way to answer it for you. But just don't overwhelm yourself. There's no one right starting place for every personality. Find what works for you. If you just want a few things to get going, if you need all the details, if you want to learn in a group, if you just want to watch some videos and call it good enough, whatever works for your personality, do that.
That's great advice. I'm part of your Color Box community. I certainly value that, and it's helpful. And I love that your books are so approachable at 100 pages or less. I think that's really, really helpful for folks. So, Vickie, we're going to send people to your website, VickieMusni.com. That's VickieMusni.com. Get to know Vickie. She's amazing. She's helpful, and she understands the real power of personality and can help you unlock that. Vickie, thank you so much for sharing your orange, your red, yellow, red, pink, and green colors with me. You're fantastic, and I really appreciate you. Thank you, my friend.
Thank you, Phil. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah. Thanks so much. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Now go learn about yourself so you can better relate to other people. Have a great day.